things that I always think of down the way is I don't wanna be old and poor, you know? I mean, it's like that's to me, that's like the worst thing and almost one of the worst things that can happen is that, you have no money and you're old. And I don't have any kids, so, I don't have anybody to kinda say, "Hey," "help mom out," or anything like that. I have nieces and nephews, but I don't know how receptive they'd be to
Mm,
me, so I wanted to make sure I was sort of at a point, and that was something that I had to keep getting reassurances about, um, but 2 years ago, I was there, and
yeah.
I ended up staying for 2 more years, not really because that was what I wanted, but what I was doing because the firm asked me to do it, and so because I needed my expertise um, but I finally just said and this is a learning, I mean, the first time and this is an unlearning because 'cause I'm not good at boundaries, I'm a people pleaser, I tend to I've lived my whole life trying to, be the best I can be,
Mm,
and I think I achieved that in my career, and it's flattering when somebody says, "We really can't do without you," that feels good, it
yeah.
feels good. But then it's like, this is not a good place for me anymore, and this is not what I want, and I wanna enjoy, the rest of my life, while I can't.
Mm,
I'm healthy and I can do things and I wanna do them, and I don't wanna end up being one of these people that, like, works their whole life and then just one day wakes up and says, "Gee, I really wish I would have, you know,
mm,
not done this." And I've known over the last couple years, I've known people that have passed away, and a colleague of mine who's always told me, he said, "I'm not gonna die at my desk." And he did, and it's
mm.
just it really is a wake-up call to say, that's not me. That never
Yeah.
has been me. I might die at this desk, but I'm not gonna die at somebody else's desk. So
So what do you think you said it's, like, took 2 years of you were ready, but the organisation wasn't, and you wanted to kinda please them. So what what finally shifted for you to go, "Alright, enough's enough, I'm gonna draw that line."
well, I think the first year, I wasn't really quite ready. I
Yeah.
wrote the resignation letter, and I actually was reading it to my husband, and I started kinda crying, and I said, that's not that that doesn't seem to me like I'm ready to leave yet."
Mm,
And so I went in and it was gonna be a fairly it was a shorter notice, like, I think I was gonna give them 3 months. And so what I decided to do was I went in January and I said, "I'm leaving at the end of the year." And then that gave them time to do what they needed to do. And so then it got toward the end of the year and at that point, I said, "I gotta have better boundaries," because I work part-time and I work remotely, which are great things, but it also is one of these things where you feel like you have to be available all
mm,
the time.
mm,
And so you never really feel like you're off. I mean, it's just like, even though I was on vacation, I was always checking my email. I need to be available because I have this sort of different working environment that they've let me do.
mm,
Um, but that year I said, I gotta have better boundaries. And I did pretty well with that, but there was still, I mean, it's practice of law and there's big stuff going on a lot of the time. And so they will, you know, email you and expect you to respond. So I just got to the point where wouldn't check my email on the weekends. I
yeah,
wouldn't, but it still was, I was kind of always felt like I was waiting for something to happen and you
yeah,
can't really relax that way. So it was the end of the year. They didn't have what they needed. They said, would you stay? So I'm trying to think. It was 1 year. I stayed another year, and then on my terms, and then at the end of this past 2025, they said, "Would you stay another month?" And I said, "Okay, I will." I didn't want to.